Sent from Disneyland, history in our hand. So much to say about yesterday and the decades we have spanned. Postcards from the park, this journey will embark. See what has changed and what remains on Sent from Disneyland. Sent from Disneyland.
Welcome to the Sent from Disneyland podcast.
Here age relives fond memories of the past.
If it's your first time joining us, welcome. On this podcast, we'll take a journey into the past and explore Disneyland, Disneyland history, and more, with mementos, snapshots, souvenirs, and postcards sent from Disneyland, from 1955 to the present. Let's start by thanking my patrons from Patreon.com. You can join in at any level to support the show and receive snail mail from my trips to Disneyland and from my desk, plus some sneak peeks and bonus content. Special thanks to Random Olive, the first patron to this podcast, and to the rest of the e-ticket patrons, to Nia, Eric Daniels, Monica Seitz Vega, Scott Cagle, Russ Romano, Michael and Christina Cross, and Sheila Harry. C-ticket patrons Serious Inquiries Only, Debbie Weinstein, Jennifer Schneep, Angela Reynolds, Grace Coate, Patty Wolin, and Ben and Noel Bruning. B-ticket patron Joshua Bell, and to the A-ticket patrons Elise Sharp, Zealot Infinity, Alexis Robles, Angel DeBlock, and the Beyond the Railroad podcast. I am your host, your post-host Clocky, and today we have 2 postcards sent from Disneyland. The front of our first postcard has an E.P. Ripley, Disneyland Railroad engine, stopped at Main Street Station. Behind it are the yellow passenger cars from the early days of the Disneyland and Santa Fe Railroad. If you look closely, you can see guests walking through the tunnel to Main Street, USA. On the back it reads, "This Santa Fe and Disneyland passenger train circles Disneyland to give passengers a bird's eye view of each land." Color photo by Fritz Musser. It's postmarked June 26, 1957, with the Costa Mesa cancel and no postage stamp. I assume they visit the park on Tuesday, June 25, 1957, when park hours were from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. The weather was a high of 81 and a low of 65. Park attendance that day was 21,106. It's addressed to Mrs. Coley Soul of South San Francisco, California. It reads, "Dear Collie, hi. Well, as you can tell, I went to Disneyland. Sure had fun, but I sure miss you all at the dance already. I have a sunburn. Well, have fun at the dance. See you when I get back. Louise." Louise would have been able to visit both Disneyland magic shops. In 1955, one of the few stores that opened in Fantasyland was Merlin's Magic Shop. At the time, Walt was relying on outside businesses to help fill parts of the park. Merv Taylor owned and operated a magic store in Hollywood named Merv Taylor Magic. The shop was famous as celebrities would visit and filmmakers would come in for a consultation about making practical magic effects for their movies. The Fantasyland Magic Shop exterior has not changed much over the last 70 years. The Northern Italian design was meant to resemble Pinocchio's village. This design was expanded through Fantasyland in the early 1980s. Merv had his own workshop and was able to take the empty shop and fill it with custom cabinetry, which took pressure off of Walt's team working on the rest of the park. One of the original window displays was Aladdin's lamp, well before the Disney version of the movie was released. The lamp looked like it was magically floating and constantly pouring out fluorescent liquid into a bowl. At night, it was lit with a black light which made it look even more magical. Inside the store also had various illusions and sold some theme park souvenirs, gag and joke items, and magic tricks. Merv had some help running the shop. Jimmy Hume, a magic enthusiast and casino operator from Reno, helped financially, and Merv's brother Bud helped with operations now that there were 2 locations, Hollywood and Anaheim. The daily operations required 2 store clerks and a magician. The magician would be a performer who might rotate through for a few months while in town or off from their normal gigs. In 1957, Merv was offered an opportunity to expand and add a magic store to Main Street and a souvenir and sundry store at the Disneyland Hotel. Add some flair to your mail by checking out stamps at Enfield Post. You can explore different stamp options on our Etsy site, grab some great deals by following the EP Sunday Sales on Instagram, or create something special and have her design a stamp array for your invitation or celebration. You can head over to EnfieldPost.com and explore all the different vintage postage stamps you can use on your next card or letter. That's ENFIELDPOST on Instagram and EnfieldPost.com for your wedding and vintage postage needs. Enfield Post is the official postage stamp sponsor of the Sent from Disneyland podcast. The front of our next postcard has a horse-drawn streetcar being pulled down Main Street, past the Emporium, and in the background, you can see guests walking towards Sleeping Beauty Castle. On the back it reads, "Horse-drawn streetcar, the leisurely pace of days gone by is seen from the plodding horse-drawn streetcar as guests ride down Main Street, USA, viewing America at the turn of the century." It's postmarked October 25th, 1971, with the U.S. Postal Service cancel and no postage stamp. I assume they visited the park on October 23rd, 1971, when park hours were from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. The weather was a high of 81 and a low of 50. It's addressed to Mr. and Mrs. C.R. Johnson of San Francisco, California. It reads, October 24th. Dear folks, our first stop was Tahoe, saw 3 shows. It was beautiful but cold in all the snow. Did Disneyland yesterday. It's been years since we were here. Going to Knott's today, and then on to San Diego tomorrow. Love, Helen. Steve Martin notably worked at Disneyland for both magic shops. He mentioned running back and forth in his book, Born Standing Up. Like with other Disneyland shops run by outside companies, Disney took over the 2 magic shops in 1965. This was likely always written into the lease, as the same thing happened to many of the Adventureland shops as well. Murph continued to run the Magicland store in the Disneyland Hotel. Merlin's Magic Shop was rethemed in 1983 to Mickey's Christmas Chalet, but the location is now back to having a Sword in the Stone theme and named Merlin's Marvelous Miscellany. The Main Street Magic Shop just got a refurbishment with some new paint and refreshed merchandise. Since 2009, the store has been leased out to Houdini's Magic Shops, based out of Las Vegas, which was purchased by Vanishing Inc. in 2022. Most of the magic books available in the redecorated shop are authored by one of the 2 owners of Vanishing Inc. Looking through my postcards, the Main Street Magic Shop is usually just out of frame. Looking through the nickel tour, there was a postcard of the magic shop in Fantasyland, its entire facade and the mailbox that used to sit in front of it. Reading a blog post on Daveland Web, the original sign for Merlin's Magic Shop was up for sale on eBay around 2015. It was being sold by the family of Merv Taylor. It was purchased by Steve Martin, who I assume still has a piece in his collection. My incoming postcard is sponsored by the Art Throwdown. Art Throwdown, or ATD, is a craft hour on Instagram, starting at 9 p.m. Eastern or 6 Pacific. Art Throwdown is a wonderful community of artists who love to share their craft, from creating sticker postcards and coloring techniques to intricate paper cutting and unique crafting. It's always a treat to watch a show and occasionally get some one-of-a-kind postcards from the group. Each host brings something a little different to each show. I'll list some of the regular hosts, or you can follow Russ Romano 2021 on Instagram. The front of my incoming postcard has a medieval-style dragon in black ink on a peach and avocado green shield shape. It's postmarked January 7th, 2025, with a San Bernardino cancel and a Dungeons & Dragons Driz Duerden holding a sword, forever postage stamp, Scott number 5914. It reads, You're never too old to set another goal or dream a new dream. C.S. Lewis. Thank you so much for the postcard. This is from the Mojave Correspondence Club and was the postcard for January. I thought it was a good fit for this episode, with the progression of Merlin's Magic Shop eventually becoming a heraldry shop. It also made me think, if I could add a magic shop to the park, where would I put it? Now that the Madame Leota store has opened at the end of Haunted Mansion, the old Baton Rouge would be a great place for a magic shop, maybe with the old Haunted Mansion illusion book I talked about way back in episode 10 of this podcast, Sent from the Haunted Mansion. Thanks for listening to Sent from Disneyland. If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe and tell your friends. It would also help to leave a 5-star rating and comment on whatever podcast platform you use. If you'd like to support the show financially, please check out our Patreon page at patreon.com/sentfromdisneyland. You can find me on Instagram and TikTok at sentfromdisneyland or my website, sentfromdisneyland.com. For questions and comments, send me a postcard addressed to Sent from Disneyland, P.O. Box 44, Hood, California, 95639. This This podcast is not affiliated with Disney, the United States Postal Service, or any post office or Disney-related properties. Opinions expressed on this podcast belong to the host and guests of the Set from Disneyland podcast. This podcast is produced and edited by Clocky McDowell, website designed by Misty McDowell, theme song was written and performed by Noah Sunday Lefkowitz. Take it away, Noah.